Hello, I'm Tom Hathaway. I'm wearing my BA hat, so let's talk business analysis. In this nugget, I'd like to discuss requirements prioritization. I will introduce you to two very simple techniques for identifying which requirements are more important than others. We're going to talk about needs-based requirements and release-based requirements. These techniques will help you when you are the one wearing the BA hat. On any given project, you may end up with dozens, hundreds, or heaven forbid, even thousands of requirements under a variety of names. You may have captured user stories, features, themes, epics, business requirements, stakeholder requirements, solution requirements, or requirements under any other name. To simplify the discussion of prioritization techniques, I will refer to all of the aforementioned as items. Prioritization of the items is critical to recognize where you should focus your efforts, no matter whether you're maintaining a product backlog or trying to deliver a requirements document. In this knowledge nugget, I will introduce a couple of prioritization techniques you might want to consider to help you make the critical decision which items are most important. For starters, make sure that you're working with a valid set of items for your project. This assessment requires someone who has insight into your organization, in particular its risk tolerance, technological maturity, and culture. The goal is to ensure that each of the items you're considering is feasible for your organization. There are three simple questions to explore. Can you deliver this item with the available technology? If it's not available within the organization, can and will the organization acquire it? This addresses technological feasibility. 2. Are there any reasons you or anyone on the team can think of that might prohibit delivering this item, e.g., cost of acquiring a new technology, risk involved in implementing the item, etc.? This falls into the category of financial feasibility. 3. Is this item acceptable within your organizational culture? Assuming that there are no technological or financial impediments, will all of the relevant stakeholders accept a solution based on this item? We call this cultural feasibility. The recommendation here is to document any concerns in any of these three areas and address them before you start to decide which items are most important. Do not waste time prioritizing items that fail the feasibility test. Given a list of feasible items, you need to have a repeatable, reliable process for identifying the relative priority so that the project or agile team can make sure the solution meets the critical items first. One of the simplest prioritization ideas is needs-based prioritization. It distinguishes between what people really need versus what they would like to have. To get started, you need your group of decision makers, stakeholders, who are knowledgeable about the feasible items.